The family is meant to be our sanctuary of a safe place, a solitude from the horrors of the world, and go back generations and generations through different eras in time, far beyond the safety and comfort of modernity. The family unit was the constant thing that people could go back to. It is the only thing that they can truly rely on. In America today and throughout the West, the traditional family unit, the wellspring of civilization, has been broken. And I don't think that people truly understand the impact of the loss of family, not just in our lives, but on society as a whole. When I say that family is the wellspring of civilization, I mean that. More than producing population, it is the soil from which good citizens are raised. But today, those soils have been salted, and nothing can really grow from them. Throughout my lifetime, we've seen the family lose its role of importance. The cohesion that families once had is gone. And most people, when being raised, when they become adults, cannot wait but to get out of the home. Can't wait to leave the family. We've become constellation families. Take my family, for instance. My family exists all over the United States, and we have family in other parts of the world as well. We're not close. No one's close. It's a rare thing to live within 5 miles of another family member. And if you do have that, be appreciative of it, because it's becoming a feature of a different era, a better time. And I'm not talking about society, I'm not talking about country, but I mean for the individual themselves. Family, having family around, having a support system, having role models and people of authority around you when you're being raised creates a strong moral code that makes people good. We don't have that anymore. Morality has become subjective. It is a feature of our modern gray dystopia. It is the graying of morality, the graying of culture, the graying of the family, the graying of responsibility, the graying of social norms. I don't think that there's anything wrong with norms. I don't think that there's anything wrong with standards. But we have to ask ourselves how it ended. What killed the traditional family? Or really, I think it comes down to 3 things. The first, obviously, no one will be surprised, is finances. Everyone has to work all the time. Moms have no time to be moms. Dads have no time to be dads. They work, they come home. No one has dinner together anymore. The idea of sharing a meal with family is something that's antiquated now, but it does mean something to share a meal with people you care about. It's a bonding experience that goes back millennia. Even in times of abundance, sitting around a dinner table strengthens familial bonds. But to have family dinners now in America is something that is almost seen as archaic. You have your food and you go to your room. No one sits at the dinner table because what's the point? No one has time. Everyone else has things to do. We're a nation who doesn't believe in free time anymore. We just believe in the hustle and go. And in that hustle and go, we lose a great part of ourselves. We lose a great part of one of the things that makes life so important, and that is family. Family isn't something that you're supposed to escape from. Family is something that you're supposed to escape to. And we've lost that somewhere. And I think that we've lost that because it's been taken from us, because we've permitted things to become the way that they are. And that leads into the second thing, which is culture. We live in a culture where it's strange to show care for other people. And there's a compounding effect to this, because it's from families that things like empathy and responsibility come from. The only time in my life that I have seen morals be instilled in people outside the family is through the brutal indoctrination of like a military boot camp, through a kind of trauma bonding. And in a world with so much trauma, it's easy to gain familial bonds with people outside of your family unit. And it's a shame, because it's normal for people to say now that this person is more family to me than my actual family. Look at our media. Look at how families are portrayed in media. There's no respectable bond between spouses anymore. There's no respect for parents. The tragic representation of the American family in media is that it is portrayed as a comedy. Raising children is a very serious thing. It's life and death in the purest form. And for the people who've chosen to have families, they understand how difficult it is now. You can say that we live in an incredibly comfortable time, and this is true to a large degree, especially in a place like America. For those who are trying to provide for a family, understand that they operate within a razor's edge. The margin for error is so small, and everything is working against you. Because our culture has turned away from seeing family as being so important that it needs to support, it's instead turned to subsidize single parenting. And while yes, being a single parent must be a very difficult thing. For many people, if you're a single parent, your child care will be taken care of by the state. And I'm not arguing that that's a bad thing. I think that social programs are very important, especially if it goes to maintaining and producing more families. But the cost of childcare for a married couple puts those parents in a position where one of them essentially would have to stay home. And America is a nation where the cost of living requires both parents to actually work. It's quite common if you have 2 kids. Your childcare costs can go between $50,000 and $70,000 a year. Yes, that's 50 and 70. That means that one of those parents would have to work $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year just to make enough to pay for the childcare, after taxes, of course. Or they can just stay home. The simple answer is yes, staying home is the best option, because there's someone there to care for the children. There's someone there to show a child what family is. But it's hard enough for people now to survive alone off one income. So you have to imagine how difficult it is for the millions of families out there that have no other choice but to have one income. The system isn't made for families anymore. The system is more geared towards single parents. And like I said, I'll never shame a single parent because I know how difficult that can be. I think it's a strange thing that in our society now, it's more difficult to exist in a nuclear family than it is to be a single mother with regards to finances. And of course, that brings us to the third cause. The end of the traditional American family, the death nail in its coffin, is our loss of priorities. Both individual and on a national level, we have no more prioritization of the family above everything else. It used to be God, nation, and family. These 3 things were the priorities of almost every person in this country, almost every person in the Western world. But people have abandoned religion, the nation has abandoned its people, and the idea, the value of family has been reduced to nothing. It's not important anymore. Where's the family events in America? Where is it in our communities that we come together to support one another, to support each other's families? This is one of the most damaging aspects of an isolated culture like we have now, is that families don't support each other, that families don't have a tribe, families don't have a community. There's no one that they can lean on, no one that they can actually rely on in case anything happens. Every family is on their own. Each family, even if you're in a city, if you're in a suburb, each family might as well exist in the middle of Alaska, surrounded by no one, surrounded by bears, surrounded by the elements, because the fact is that families are alone. The fact is that there's no one there to help us, there's no one there to support us, and if you err, if you make one mistake, the state will come in and take your children away. If something happens and you lose your job, if something happens and you're injured and you can't work anymore, they'll come in and take your house away because you can't afford your taxes. And affording taxes is becoming harder and harder every year as they raise the taxes, but incomes continue to be stagnant. And I refuse to be so cold-hearted as to believe that people should just have to work harder. That people can do it if they really want to. That people are on their own. I believe that hardening ourselves and hardening our hearts to others has really brought us to where we are today, because it forces us to live with a perspective that nothing else in the world matters except me, except I. If you only focus on me or I, you don't actually care about your wife. You don't actually care about your children. You don't care about anyone else. And this shouldn't feel like a foreign sentiment, because that's where our culture is now. That's where our nation is now. We don't care about family. When is the last time you talked to your parents? When is the last time you called your brother, your sister, you texted them? When's the last, do you even know all your cousins' names? Do you know your nephews and nieces' names? Family in America means nothing anymore because it doesn't need the family anymore. Not for what the state wants, not for what the government wants. Because the state understands that if people with strong moral character come from families, and families are necessary to raising good citizens that hold the government and hold people in positions of power accountable for their actions, then they have to destroy their family. They have to destroy a family's security. Because if you destroy a family's security, if you destroy a population's ability to put forth people into the next generation who hold to a moral code, who would hold their leaders to that same moral code, then you set up a future of opposition. And this system has erased all opposition. There's no middle class anymore. There's no sense of freedom or liberty. Freedom of speech is only a slogan now that people use. But the true reality of this freedom is that freedom of speech doesn't mean that you're free from consequence. And this is the position of tyrants. And it may make sense if you have no true morality, if you exist in a moral gray. And that's where we exist now. Because the traditional American family has died. And we're no longer a nation, we're no longer a community. We are a horde. We are just a conglomeration of many groups of people with differing and conflicting ideologies, where no one can say that one is right and one is wrong, because we are all equal, and because truth and fairness and equality are subjective measures that can easily be applied and manipulated by those in power to keep us at each other's throats instead of objecting with one another. So yes, the American family is dead. Yes, the family of the West is dead, and it didn't die of natural causes either. If you have family members, call them. If you have close friends, call them. Because this is one of the few things that we can actually affect. We can have family again. We can take back a very powerful force that creates civilization. That is the American family. That is the family. It's ours to take back. All you have to do is strengthen those bonds because they're still there, but it's up to us to do it. So my family, I appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by.